It was a cold, misty morning when Kenji and Aiko Nakamura arrived in the quiet village near Osaka, Japan. The streets were narrow and winding, lined with old wooden houses built in the traditional Japanese architectural style. The village was eerily silent, except for the occasional rustling of leaves in the cool autumn wind. The couple had spent weeks searching for an affordable place to live, something away from the noise and chaos of Osaka City. They had been thrilled when they found a beautiful old house for an unbelievably low rent. Aiko had fallen in love with it instantly. It was a two-story wooden house with a curved tiled roof, sliding paper doors, and a lush garden with an ancient cherry blossom tree in the yard. The house exuded a certain mystique, a charm from an era long gone. The landlord, an old man with deep-set eyes and a wrinkled face, had been reluctant to rent it out at first. He had hesitated, his fingers trembling slightly as he handed over the keys. "You must never disturb a house," the landlord had warned in a hushed tone. Kenji had laughed. "What does that mean?" The old man looked at them with an expression too grave to ignore. "This house has a history, many before you have left. Some never left at all." Aiko felt a shiver creep up her spine. Kenji, ever the rational one, dismissed it. "Superstitions," he had whispered to her, squeezing her hand. "Old people say strange things about houses like this." If only they had listened. The first evening in the house was peaceful. Kenji and Aiko unpacked their belongings, admiring the traditional tatami flooring and intricate wooden beams. Aiko even prepared a warm meal, lighting a few paper lanterns to create a cozy atmosphere. As night fell, the silence of the village became unsettling. Then came the first odd occurrence. In the middle of the night, Aiko woke up gasping for air. She could feel something heavy pressing down on her chest, an invisible force that made it impossible to move. Her heart hammered in her ribcage as she tried to scream, but no sound escaped her lips. She saw it. A dark, shadowy figure stood at the foot of the futon, its eyes two hollow pits of darkness. It was watching her unmoving, its presence suffocating. Then it vanished. The moment she regained control of her body, she shook Kenji awake, her hands trembling. "Kenji, there's someone in the house." He leapt out of bed, grabbing his phone and switching on the flashlight. The room was empty. The doors were still locked. "It was just a nightmare, Aiko," Kenji reassured her, pulling her into his arms. But deep inside, she knew it wasn't a nightmare. Something was in the house with them. Over the next few days, things got worse. Aiko began hearing whispers from the walls, soft, distant voices speaking in an old dialect of Japanese she couldn't understand. Kenji, always the skeptic, told her it was just the old wooden structure settling. Then one evening, as Aiko was preparing dinner, the kitchen lights flickered. The gas stove turned on by itself. And then she saw it again. The same shadowy figure, now closer, standing just outside the kitchen doorway. This time, it whispered her name, Aikuka. She screamed, dropping the bowl of miso soup she was holding. The ceramic shattered across the floor. Kenji rushed in. What happened? Aiko's body was rigid with fear. I saw it. Again. Kenji clenched his jaw. He was beginning to feel uneasy too. The air in the house had become thick, oppressive, heavy with something unseen. That night, Kenji heard it too. A faint whisper echoed through the hallway outside their bedroom. The floorboards creaked as if someone was walking. Kenji got up and checked every room. Nothing. But as he turned to go back to bed, he saw it. A set of muddy, bare footprints on the wooden floor leading to their bedroom. His blood ran cold. They had locked the doors before sleeping. Determined to get answers, Kenji decided to inspect the house the next morning. In the hallway upstairs, he noticed something strange. A section of the wall, slightly misaligned with the rest. He pressed against it, and it slid open. Behind it, a hidden room. The air inside was stale, filled with the scent of old decay. Dust-covered traditional dolls lined the shelves, their glass eyes reflecting the dim light. And on the far side of the room, a small shrine with a blackened photo of a woman. Aiko's breath hitched. The woman in the photo looked exactly like her. Beneath it, a torn parchment. Kenji picked it up, his hands shaking as he read the faded ink. To anyone who finds this, I'll leave now. The woman in this house is not what she seems. Aiko staggered back. A chill ran through Kenji's spine as a realization hit him. The thing haunting them wasn't just a ghost. It was the house itself. That night, they decided to leave. They packed whatever they could, ignoring the whispers that had grown louder. The house seemed angry, the walls vibrating as if it knew they were trying to escape. As they reached the door, it slammed shut. The windows shattered, and a gust of freezing wind knocked them back. And then it appeared, the shadowy figure, no longer just a ghostly presence. It had form now. A woman in a tattered kimono, her face distorted, mouth twisted into an unnatural grin. Her voice echoed through the house. "You think you can leave?" Kenji grabbed Aiko's hand and lunged for the back door. It wouldn't budge. The floor began to crack beneath them, as if the house was pulling them in. Aiko screamed, praying for it to stop. And then, everything went black. When they woke up, they were outside, lying in the damp grass. The house stood untouched, as if nothing had happened. The landlord stood nearby, shaking his head. "You tried to leave, didn't you?" he murmured. Kenji and Aiko were too shaken to speak. "This house," the old man continued, "cannot be burned. It cannot be torn down. Many have tried. They always fail." Aiko whispered, "Why?" The old man's face was grim. "Because the house is alive." As they stared at the house one last time, the shadowy figure watched from the second-floor window, smiling, waiting for its next victims.